The Flagstaff courthouse had seen scandal before, but nothing like this. Tall with weathered stone walls and towering pillars, the building was less a courthouse than a monument to justice. And on this particular morning, justice wasn't an idea. It was going to be performed in front of the world. Hello everyone, I'm Ania. Welcome back to Core Wealth. Today's story, you won't be able to get enough of this one, because what happened inside those walls wasn't another fight in court. It was the beginning of the end for one of reality TV's favourite families. The air outside was thick, not just with hot summer air, but with tension built up over years. Reporters and fans clogged the courthouse steps. Cameras clicked, microphones hovered, and whispers hung in the air. A few even travelled from nearby states to catch a glimpse of what many were already calling the trial that would shatter the Brown family reign. Christine was the first to arrive. Egressing from a black SUV, her navy dress immaculate, her blonde curls perfectly coiffed, she moved with subtle determination. She didn't need words, her very presence volunteered everything. She had arrived to fight, and she had arrived to win. Close behind her, her attorney maintained pace, a woman whose sharp eyes promised that no argument would go unchallenged. Within moments, Cody Brown materialized, his hair of gold pulled back into a ponytail, his black suit glinting in the sun. He walked rapidly, too rapidly, almost as if daring anyone to do anything else. His severe demeanor radiated self-assurance, but those who watched closely detected the giveaway, the slumped shoulders, the urgent side glances. Behind the bluster was he shaken. Inside, the courthouse hummed with expectant worry. Courtroom 3 was to be the stage of a battle over children, property, and a marriage crumbling before their eyes. As the bailiff's booming "All rise" echoed through the room, the tension stretched tight and silent. The judge, a silver-haired woman with an icy stare, took her seat. With deliberate firmness, she cautioned them all. This is a court of law, not TV reality, professionalism only. But if Christine and Cody had been playing for the cameras theatrically before, this day was different. Christine was seated forward, knuckles white on her fists, staring straight ahead. Cody was slumped back in his chair, arms stretched out in front of him, looking relaxed, but possessing the attitude of a man who was not going to give in. And then there were the words which made the hairs stand on the back of everyone's neck. Brown versus Brown. It sounded good. It did not. This was not divorce. It was the untangling of a life built on shared children, shared vows, and years of abstinence. In contrast to TLC's masterfully spun narratives, what was about to happen here was naked, uncut, and absolutely genuine. Christine's lawyer spoke to her first, voice steady but unyielding. She framed the issue. Years of diligent effort, attempts to keep a marriage that could not be preserved, withheld contributions, and future in jeopardy. Christine was not asking for anything she did not deserve. Custody of her child and her half of the long-awaited Coyote Pass real estate. The term Coyote Pass by itself was like pouring fire to gasoline. To fans of Sister Wives, it wasn't property. It was the dream Cody once presented, but never delivered. Cody's lawyer replied with urgency, slicing and burning. Not a matter of fairness, he argued, it was control. He argued that Cody was the devoted father, the one fighting to stay in his child's life, while Christine was practicing parental alienation. Cody nodded to every word, his stare pinned on Christine like a soldier eyeing his opponent. Christine did not flinch. The judge held up a hand, and the courtroom went silent. Custody, assets, each issue would be heard in turn. Witnesses were sworn in, stories spilled out, stories of constant argument, children between whom there was crossfire, and the day that Christine finally packed up and fled to Utah. Not running, the witness protested. Fled. By the time morning was over, the courtroom was charged with electricity. This was no longer simply a disagreement over the law. It had turned into a spectacle. The breakdown of Cody and Christine's marriage was being aired live, and the entire room had the feeling they were witnessing something historic. When recess was announced, Christine sat quietly with her attorney. Cody strode down the hallway, chin high, shoulders back. To the naked eye, he seemed confident, but some sharp observers caught sight of the telltale flutter of his jaw. Outside, the press was ruthless. "Christine, are you going to get custody? Cody, do you think you're doing the right thing?" Neither answered. Neither could, because somewhere deep down, both of them knew. This was only the beginning. The actual fireworks were yet to arrive. And here's the thing. Long before the courtroom lights, long before the lawyers sharpened their arguments and the judge called court to order, the cracks in their marriage were already telling their story in silence. To Sister Wives fans, Cody and Christine's union always seemed complicated. Behind closed doors, though, it was far more precarious than anyone could have ever possibly imagined. On television, Cody was perpetually the confident patriarch, a guy with multiple wives, shrugged off. But look closer, and the cracks were always present. Those fleeting seconds when Christine's smile would falter, when Cody's voice crackled with annoyance, when their exchanges had an undercurrent of tension. Fault lines start small, almost imperceptible to those who don't know. But if you live in the confines of that house, you hear the creaks, you feel the chill seeping through. You know sooner or later the crack will open up. Christine and Cody cohabited over 25 years in a spiritual union, having children in common under the plural arrangement Cody shared with his other wives. But Christine admits she never did feel at home in it. It wasn't the jealousy that stung. Jealousy is practically unavoidable in a multiple marriage. It was the emotional distance. She wanted a husband who would share, lean on her, treat her as an equal. But what she found was that often she was an afterthought. As she explained later, "I didn't feel important. I didn't feel like an equal partner." And that only grew worse with each year. Cody spent more and more time with fourth wife Robin, relegating Christine and the others to the background. Christine noticed, and so did the rest of the family, but whereas some stayed quiet, Christine began speaking out. Cody didn't like it. The turning point was 2020. Cody enforced strict stay-at-home rules for COVID, so strict, Christine felt estranged from her children and even from her grandchildren. She rebelled. He escalated. Their arguments escalated into vicious battles, no longer about health, but about dominance. Christine remembers the fight that did it. She told Cody, "I can't do this anymore if you won't treat me like a partner." His reply was cutting. Accusations of betrayal, infidelity, and undermining his authority. That was when Christine knew the marriage was over. The leaving didn't occur in a fit of anger and banging doors. It occurred in the morning when she was making breakfast for their youngest child, Truly. Seated in another room, she heard Cody on the phone with one of his other wives. His tone was warm, loving, even playful. Christine couldn't remember the last time he'd spoken to her in this way. That was it. She realized she didn't have to live this way anymore. She plotted from that moment forward, secretly. She called her family in Utah, found a place to rent, and began to withdraw her money from the shared family coffers. She was aware that she would not be able to get out without a struggle. She and Cody still had a child together, and Cody was not the sort of man who would quietly let her go. When finally she told him, Cody attributed it to another fight. But as soon as he had seen the boxes packed, rage replaced denial. "You're not taking Truly with you to Utah," he snarled, voice icily cold. "Leave if you want to, but she's staying here." Christine was firm. "I'm her mother. I've cared for her every day of her life. She's coming with me." That fight unlocked the door to everything that followed. Cody accused her of trying to steal their daughter. Christine accused him of being a missing father. Lawyers were called in, and the subtle fissures in their marriage erupted into a custody battle. Cody began telling anyone who would listen, family members, friends, even the other wives, that Christine was cutting him out of Truly's life. Christine was outraged. In her view, he had already marked out years earlier by neglecting him, and now he was attempting to redefine it. Her attorney petitioned for exclusive custody on the grounds of Christine being the sole caregiver to Truly and Cody's infrequent presence. Cody fired back with his own claim of joint custody, accusing Christine of parental alienation. It turned ugly fast. Brawls spilled over into text messages, email, and yelling late-night phone calls. Cody threatened, according to Christine, that if she continued, he would attack her financially as well, raising the question of Coyote Pass, the family's infamous undeveloped property. To the outside world, Coyote Pass was nothing but land. To the Browns, it was to be the dream, a project in which multiple homes would be constructed, where the family would live together in conjunction. To Christine, it had become a symbol of broken promises. She had invested her money in it, waited for it, and gotten nothing for it. And now, Cody was seemingly holding it as a stick over her head. But Christine wasn't going anywhere. This fight was now more than just custody. It was about taking back her rightful portion of what belonged to her. The tension hit its peak during a gathering at Robin's house. Several wives were present when Christine explained she needed to leave to save herself and her daughter. Cody lashed out in front of everyone. "You're abandoning the family," he shouted. Christine didn't hesitate. "I'm saving myself," she shot back, "and I'm saving my daughter." The silence that followed was suffocating. That day, Christine ceased to be the obedient wife who remained quiet for the family's benefit. From that point, the clock on the court began to tick. Lawyers sharpened their arguments, facts were gathered, text messages, banking transactions, witness statements. Friends were pulled into the fight, instructed to take sides. Headlines burned across celebrity news. Sister wives star in explosive custody battle. Cody and Christine Brown face off in court. For fans, it was like reality television encroaching on real life. For Cody and Christine, it was a deeper thing, a struggle for their child, for their ego, and for their tomorrow. By the time of the trial, the cracks in their marriage had become wide, gaping canyons. Christine went into that courtroom sure of what she wanted. Cody went into it just as sure of what he did not want to lose. And when the judge took his seat, years of rage, broken promises, and hurt realities were brought out from the shadows. And with the gavel's sound, one thing was for sure. No longer would this be a family soap opera. It was a war that would redefine the Brown dynasty for good. Within the courthouse halls, the air was heavy with tension. It was a stillness before the storm, electric, heavy, and unavoidable. Everyone in attendance felt that the drama soon to be enacted was not merely an adjudication procedure. It was something more profound, more intimate, and infinitely closer to the heart. Christine sat across from the plaintiff's table, fingers cramped together, her movements slow and deliberate. She confronted Cody, who could not remain still. Fingers tapped out a staccato on the table, each beat a reflection of the anger seeping from him. It seemed like each passing second was another punch that he had to take. The judge's voice pierced the air. "We now address custody of the minor child, Truly Brown." That was the real crux of the case, and it began. Christine's attorney rose first. Steady, calm, resolute, she stated that Christine had been Truly's sole caregiver from the time of birth. Christine nodded slightly, resolute but not haughty. She knew she had a record that spoke for itself. Cody's attorney did not hesitate. He dove into an opening of fire hose proportions, stating this was an outright case of parental alienation. His voice was full of man, attempting to regain control of the room. Cody, in his view, was the good father who had been thwarted in every attempt by Christine's one-way decisions and moved to Utah. Cody nodded stiffly with every assertion, jaw clenched, his eyes flicking toward Christine as if challenging her to do otherwise. The first witness to testify was a Flagstaff neighbor who had known the family since they lived there. Her testimony was starkly contrasted. She testified that Christine's ubiquitous presence at school drop-offs, conferences, and doctor's appointments was a common sight. Cody, according to her, was much less dependable. Under questioning, Cody's attorney probed her. "Do you feel closer to Christine than Cody?" The neighbor acknowledged yes, she had seen Christine more frequently, but she stood firm. "That's because she was there. I don't know where Cody was, but Christine always was." Then it was Christine's turn on the witness stand. The courtroom grew still as she outlined her ordinary day-to-day life, the nighttime fever, the homework on the kitchen counter, the frequent trips to the doctor. "My first priority has always been stability for Truly," she said to the judge. "Relocating to Utah wasn't about hurting Cody. It was about providing my daughter with the stability of home and loving family." Cody's lawyer jumped up. "Did you give notice to Mr. Brown prior to relocating?" Christine's voice was not shaken. "Yes, I did. I didn't receive permission. I didn't have to, but I did, and he threatened me." Cody spoke loudly and boisterously, as if he were a warrior going off to battle. His voice rang with practiced assurance. "Each day, I wanted to be a part of my daughter's life. I never gave her up." Christine had poisoned her against me. His voice was angry, but then the question pierced the acting. Christine's lawyer asked it, "Mr. Brown, how many overnight stays did you have with Truly before she went to Utah?" Cody braked in his tracks. His gaze darted up, then off to his lawyer. At last he growled, "I don't recall the date." That single hesitation spoke volumes. By noon, the courtroom was hot. The judge walked up, her gaze boring into both parents. "I am not here to referee a wedding brawl," she told them. "I sit here to ascertain what is best for this child." She addressed Cody. "Mr. Brown, I think that you love your daughter very much, but love is not enough. It means that you do something about it." And then to Christine. "Mrs. Brown, you're the caregiver, but traveling without a custody order in hand was no small feat. There will be compromise." Her words sting before the gavel has even been lifted. But the greatest shock was when both lawyers started reading text messages in court. Christine's attorney read Cody's messages from texts aloud. Accusations of manipulation. She's toxic and selfish. Christine's responses, on the other hand, were polite, talking about pick-up and drop-off times and school. Cody's attorney responded later, bringing up instances of times when Christine had cancelled or changed visits. The judge leaned in close, brow furrowed every time Cody used his more threatening tone within the courtroom. At last she cut in. "Mr. Brown, this is not how co-parenting is done." And then the emotional gut punch. Truly's school counselor materialized through video testimony. She testified gently but plaintively. Truly loves both her parents equally, but she feels caught in the middle. At this point, she feels safer with her mother. Stability is essential to her health. Christine's eyes did glint, but she never lost her temper. Cody shifted in his seat, jaws locked, fighting the need to allow tension to get the better of him. When the day was over, the judge cautioned both parties. "We will be back tomorrow to complete final closing arguments and last witnesses. I strongly urge mediation in front of this court rather than having it decide. Keep in mind, this is for Truly, not winning or losing." Christine sat forward towards her attorney, whispering before she began to nod more firmly. Cody remained rigid, staring up at the judge as if attempting to pull the verdict from her eyes before it could ever exist. Out on the sidewalk, the crowd burst with questions. Reporters yelled, cameras popped, but neither Cody nor Christine provided the world with what it so craved. For inside, they both knew the war was not finished yet. Day 2 was coming, and day 1 being all sensation, day 2 would be all about something harder, more bitter, and much more lethal: money, worldly possessions, and broken vows. Christine remained quiet beside her lawyer, a large pile of papers neatly spread out in front of her. Across the aisle, Cody bent forward over the body of his lawyer, ranting, whispering sounds pouring from his mouth, his face set and unyielding. As the judge's voice broke into the heavy silence, each ear in the courtroom was stretched taut to hear. We will now consider the question of division of property, to wit, property known as Coyote Pass. Just the mention of it created a palpable quiver in the gallery. To the external world, Coyote Pass was nothing but a piece of land. For the Browns, however, it meant much more. It was Cody's grand vision, the drawing he'd envisioned for his family. A vision which, years of delay, had failed to materialize. And now, the vision was on trial. Christine's attorney stood up first. With cautious reserve, she argued, "Your Honor, my client invested under the belief that homes one day would be constructed for each wife and her children. She invested funds in direct investment and in family earnings, and yet, years after, there is nothing on that land. My client is asking either one of two things: her rightful portion of Coyote Pass or damages equal to its market value." Christine did not back down, her determination unshaking. This was not a fight for custody. She had come to obtain what she felt was rightfully hers. But Cody's group didn't waste any time in retaliating. His lawyer rose to his feet fast, voice angry and aggressive. Coyote Pass was never an investment of a personal nature. It was a family undertaking, a dream by all. To require a cash payment now is contrary to the very reason that it was purchased. Cody shook his head and shouted loudly enough for others to hear, "She's selling something that she never owned." The judge quickly snapped her eyes at him. "Mr. Brown, you will speak only when it is your turn." Christine's opening salvo. Papers. Her lawyer pulled out bank statements, bills, signed contracts, evidence of her financial contributions into buying and holding the land. It was no longer an emotional fight anymore. It was now a war of receipts. The gallery leaned in, stunned. Fans and relatives alike had long wondered who had ultimately paid for Coyote Pass. Now, for the first time, some answers were finally coming into view. Cody lashed back with self-defense. He employed a hot tone. "I financed the majority of this land. I paid the taxes. She's playing her cards too hard. This was to be our children's legacy, and now she's attempting to destroy it because she was unable to cope with plural marriage." The lawyer for Christine fired back with acuity. "Mr. Brown, which children precisely have benefited from Coyote Pass to date?" Cody stuttered. "None yet, but they will." The stunned silence that followed. But Christine's team wasn't done yet. They had brought in an appraiser who took an oath under oath that the value of Coyote Pass had grown astronomically since it was bought. When the expert recited the amount Christine's share would be worth based on today's value, gasps convulsed the courtroom. Cody's face turned icy with barely suppressed rage. "This has nothing to do with money," Cody exploded, pounding the table with his fists. "She's punishing me, destroying the family, to get a settlement." Christine shut her eyes, preparing herself. She didn't need to scream back. Her lawyer's cool response cut like surgeon's steel. "Your Honor, my client's motives don't matter. The law is explicit. She's entitled to her share." The gavel of the judge rang out in the courtroom. "Mr. Brown, one more comment and I will find you in contempt. This is not a family dinner table disagreement. This is a court of law." And then the bomb dropped. Robin Brown was called to the witness stand by Christine's lawyer. The atmosphere was transformed in an instant. Dorothy locked her fists together and confessed under duress that the family plan originally did indeed involve homes for all three wives. And yes, Christine had put Dorothy up. Although Robin no longer wanted to qualify, Christine's lawyer jumped on. "That's no more than we required." By late afternoon, the judge spoke her words of measured gravity. Coyote Pass is owned in common. Whatever its ultimate purpose, investments made must be respected. If you cannot come to an agreement, I will act on the basis of its appraised value. I urge you very seriously to attempt negotiation before I do so on your behalf. The court adjourned with tension hanging in the air like cigarette smoke. Cody refused to back down, his frame tense with pride. Christine leaned forward in her direction, her voice in a whisper, a glint of resolve in her eyes. It was now apparent. Custody was half done. The other half was this ground, a war-torn field of shattered trust and broken promises. For Christine, taking what was hers wasn't about acquiring, it was about severing the final strand that had enabled Cody to control her life. For Cody, losing Coyote Pass equaled losing the fantasy he had sold his family and the world for years. As the trial approached its conclusion, one thing was certain. No matter what the judge decided, the Brown family would never be the same again. And with that dark silence looming so heavily over the courtroom, everybody knew the conclusion of this trial would close a case. It would close a book on the Browns' past forever. Christine arrived first, in deep forest green, her demeanor subdued but resolute. She glided like a woman who had taken her truth and now left the proportion to the judge. Cody arrived a few minutes later. His shoulders were set square, but his gait was a little sluggish, the price of war written across his crumpled black suit. His gaze swept across the room quickly, settled on Christine, and homed in on the bench. In the back row, Robin glided noiselessly into a seat, her white face, pursed lips drawing back in a tight line, not meeting Christine's. By order of the court, all rise. The bailiff snapped the silence, and the judge appeared, her robe flowing behind her like a dark cloud. She did not lose a moment. Here to read the court's ruling on custody and property settlement, my ruling stands. Any upset will lead to removal. Christine and Cody exchanged nervous nods, the seriousness of what was about to happen weighing on their faces. The air was so charged, even the buzz of lights was cacophonous. The judge started with custody, this trial's heart. Reading from the testimony, evidence, and statements of witnesses, her voice was steady but strong. The court finds that the best interest of Truly Brown will be served by awarding primary physical custody to Mrs. Christine Brown. Christine's eyes closed as one tear made its way down her cheek. Her shoulders sagged for the first time in weeks, a little to release tension. But before the room could even breathe, the judge went on. Mr. Cody Brown will have visitation, alternating holidays, summer break, and 1 weekend a month school term. All visits will be planned 2 weeks beforehand in writing. Both parties will not speak ill of each other in the child's presence. Cody's jaw clamped down like stone. His attorney stepped forward, quietly and rapidly hissing, but Cody did not move, his own face set in an expression of serenity that was beginning to crack around the periphery. Then the property was mentioned. The room was quiet once more. With respect to the property known as Coyote Pass, she said, the court finds that Mrs. Christine Brown has made recorded monetary contributions to its purchase and maintenance. These contributions entitle her to a proportional share of its fair market value. Mr. Brown is ordered to pay in cash within 6 months. If he does not, the property shall be sold at public auction and proceeds distributed proportionately. Gasps circulated in the courtroom. Robin placed her hands over her mouth, weeping as the magnitude of the verdict hit her. Christine gave a silent nod, her face set but her eyes glimmering with relief. Cody looked at her, his eyes open, but the judge cut him off with cold in her voice. Mr. Brown, my decision is final. There will be no appeal. The ensuing silence was stifling. Cody's jaws clenched, his chest heaving with jerky respirations. His pride, so long constructed over years under the spotlight, had been flayed by a single verdict. Robin's gentle sobs cut through the silence as she reached for him, muttering something he refused to hear. Final remarks? The judge inquired. Christine stood up slowly. Her tone was quiet but intense. I didn't try to hurt anybody. I tried to protect my child and ensure the future. I worked years of my life for this home. Today I take back what is mine. She sat, her attorney's hand on her arm. The gavel came down with a cracking sound like a whip. "Court is adjourned." Cody stood rigidly, moving toward the door as the din of reporters' voices erupted outside. Cameras flashed, microphones were thrust in front of him, words spilled out. He stopped for an instant at the doorway, his gaze on Christine, not with anger, but with shock. She did not glance back. She picked up her papers and moved straight ahead, her path sure. The courthouse steps erupted into bedlam. Journalists yelled over each other. "Christine, what is your reaction to the verdict?" "Cody, are you going to appeal?" "Robin, is the Brown family dream shattered?" Christine's response was brief, but it landed with the force of a sledgehammer. "I feel free." Cody remained silent. He left the group in silence, Robin following him, crying on her face. In less than an hour, headlines flooded all media outlets. Christine wins custody and property war. Christine Brown wins Coyote Pass battle. Robin Brown caught in tears. Internet chat rooms ran amok. Some of Christine's supporters rejoiced over her victory as long overdue. Others bemoaned it as the demise of Cody's dream. But one thing was certain. This was Cody's most public and most tragic defeat. Christine returned to Utah on the night of the tragedy and was greeted with flowers, hugs, and applause by relatives and friends. For the first time in years, she was serene. Cody, on the other hand, was out of sight. Those who knew him best murmured that he seethed, beset not only by what had transpired, but by the way the world now regarded him. Robin stayed by his side, yet tension permeated every look and movement. The man who once stood so tall, arguing with conviction on the national airwaves, was now shorter, less assertive, with fewer words to say. The decision had been made, the line drawn in the sand, a line that would never be erased. Christine had won her freedom, custody of her child, and her rightful portion of Coyote Pass. Cody had been left with broken pride, a fractured family, and the broken dream he had once held out as his legacy. For the audience, it was reality television crashing into reality. For the Browns, though, it was the end of an age and the uncertain start of whatever came next.